Indianola, Mississippi, the heart of the Delta.
You had no rights. You worked, you did what people told you to do. No matter where you worked, people had control over you, whether you taught school or picked cotton. Before Freedom Summer, it was just a very difficult life for black people generally.
Yeah, it was common knowledge that, they killed blacks at whenever they decided to.
And you have to be careful where you walked, where you went alone. So it was always that shadow a lot of times over people's head that this could happen to you.
I mean, this used to be the hotbed of segregationist racism. The whole purpose of Jim Crow segregation was to keep majority down and keep control of the society, well, in particularly the ballot box.
In 1964, civil rights activists launched a campaign in Mississippi to break black subjugation. The movement was called Freedom Summer.
We had come to realize that the only way we were going to be successful and really get anything important done out of the civil rights movement in Mississippi was to get some help. And that help needed to come from some place of authority. And that was going to be done by bringing these white aristocratic boys and girls into Mississippi, and at the same time having their families back home bombard the Justice Department, the President, and the FBI to focus on Mississippi. We didn't want anybody to get killed. But the fact that Swanner, Goodman, and Cheney was killed as we were beginning the summer project gave us what we hoped to get out of it, and that was attention.
In this environment of fear and death, a few brave African Americans opened their homes to the volunteers. Stacy White's aunt, Irene Magruder, was the first.
During that time, it was hard for African Americans. Opening up your home to civil rights workers, Freedom Summer volunteers, could mean death. It could mean your house being firebombed. It could mean that you lose your job. So it was frightening times. My great aunt home was firebombed. There were other homes that were firebombed. There was the Freedom School. Mr. Oscar Giles' store was firebombed. My great aunt's home was firebombed. And the King home was firebombed also.
It did achieve the goal of raising the level of consciousness of the nation to what was happening in Mississippi. And at the same time, it did get us the Voting Rights Act.
In the years since the 1965 Voting Rights Act, the black majority in Indianola have firmly established their political power.
Just about all of our department heads for the city are African Americans. We have an African American mayor, we have African American school superintendent, plus we have a black congressman for the 2nd Congressional District. If one can go out and get an education, one can just about do anything. That's what my parents taught me. They worked in the cotton fields as young people. The key to getting out of that cotton field was an education. To click on create a macro link. That's very good. Okay, have we lost anyone on the quiz?
Stacy White is an example of the gains made by Freedom Summer and the civil rights movement. She has multiple degrees, teaches at a predominantly black college in nearby Itabena, Mississippi, and is a PhD candidate at Mississippi State University, a previously all-white institution. But not everyone has benefited as clearly as she has.
I just don't see nothing good from here. I don't know. Just ain't enough, ain't no building. You can stand one spot like you see now and see 6, 7 abandoned houses, burnt down houses.
42 years after the Freedom Summer, there's still economic disparity. When you look at the fact that many of the white people who are in business, those businesses were passed down. When you look at the wealth and whatever of white people, much of that was passed down. When you look at the land that white people own, much of it was passed down. We control the political power, but the white community controlled the economic power.
Indianola is in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, a rich agricultural region. Historically, local farmers with political clout discouraged competing industries for fear that they would drive up labor costs. In the past 50 years, though, machines have replaced people in the cotton, corn, and soybean fields. Today, the region is paying the price and may be losing one of its most important resources, young people.
Some people have gone outside of Indianola looking for jobs. Some have relocated for employment. So it is hard right now, and it's not just in Indianola, it's all throughout the Delta.
I don't have a job, but I'm doing an interview at Bargain Lane. It's like a little warehouse. They put things on eBay. I'm gonna do that. I guess ain't too many jobs that you can decide from other than Dollar General and Supervisor. I'm about the best 2 jobs, and everything else minimum wage job. Most young people getting in trouble around here. You know, it's a lot of drugs moving around because of the jobs that they can't get good job. People can't get paid, so they try to get quick and fast money. I might get my contracting license depending on what I'm getting at that point. Then I'm gonna go back to school or get my veterinary degree. I like animals. I got a lot of animals too in my house. And I guess move away from here. I want to move now, but I got too many things going. Can't go nowhere right now.
With the gains of the civil rights movement, there's disagreement about whether race is still a factor. So it's not even an issue.
Not to me, it's not, and to most of the people that I know.
Yeah.
Everybody, just you take the whites, they grew up here, a lot of them are still here. They don't even think about it.
There's a big social division still, even though a lot of people have accepted, the changes, it still hadn't come across in the social realm.
Municipal school system as well as the county school system are 98% black. Almost no whites attend the public schools.
If you don't go to school together and play together and go to church together, when can it happen?
I think Martin Luther King again said that we'll either learn to live together as brethren or we'll perish together as fools. There's some serious problems ahead, real serious problems ahead for the economy of the Delta and of black people. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do.
This spring in Anaheim, protesters gathered outside the conference of the National Association of School Psychologists. Their complaint? A program called Teen Screen that's making its way into high schools across the country. Vicki Walker organized the protest.
Teen Screen is a marketing scam for pharmaceutical companies. It's a way to get more children put on psychotropic drugs.
Walker's furious that teens are being subjected to mental health screenings. She pulled her 13-year-old son out of public school and is teaching him at home.
I send him to school so he can learn how to read, so he can learn how to write, so he can learn arithmetic. I don't send him to school to become this perfect little puppet that has no individuality and that can't communicate or express his viewpoints.
How has a program designed to help teens in need attracted such vocal opponents? Dr. Susan Smiga says it's because they've got the wrong idea about how Teen Screen works.
It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete on a computer, and it looks at depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, as well as has some general health questions and suicide questions.
Dr. Smiga is a child psychiatrist at UC San Francisco and runs the Teen Screen program in several city high schools. She says the screening itself, developed at Columbia University, has nothing to do with drugs.
Teen Screen does not endorse any particular form of treatment. It does not make a diagnosis. It simply identifies kids who appear to be at risk and then tries to encourage and help facilitate evaluation.
It was really hard for me to admit that I had depression, and like I like still sometimes have trouble talking about it with like some people, but yeah, you should at least try checking up on them.
Psychiatrists estimate as many as 1 in 8 adolescents may have depression. Irina, a senior at Drew High School, says her story started years ago.
My mom got cancer, then she died when I was 12, and then my sister moved to America, and I was still in Russia living with my dad, and my dad was just a really, really abusive person, and I don't know, like 2 years alone with him totally drove me crazy. That's when I started self-mutilation. Yeah, and then he died in a car accident.
By the time she arrived in San Francisco to live with her sister, she was suffering from what doctors called post-traumatic stress disorder. She got through the initial shock with therapy, but before long, she started cutting again.
You kind of want to feel something else, so you want to hurt yourself, cut or whatever, to feel the physical pain, because sometimes it's much rather feel the physical pain than just like deal with your emotional problems.
Irina says she never would have told anybody what she was going through, but when her physician expressed concern, she confessed. According to Dr. Smiga, teens usually won't seek out help. They'll wait until help comes to them. That's where Teen Screen comes in.
Mental illness in this country carries the same kind of stigma that cancer used to. And if people had cancer, they would hide it from their friends, they would hide it from their families, they would not use the word. And in some ways, certain mental conditions like depression are in that category still.
Teen Screen supporters want to make mental health screening a routine examination, the way all kids have their eyes and ears checked by the school nurse. It wouldn't be mandatory, but would be available to any student in the public school system. While the screening tool is primarily being used in high schools, it's approved for kids as young as 9. And Vicki Walker worries about the damage it could do.
Have you ever tried to kill yourself in the last year? Are you still thinking of killing yourself? Have you thought seriously about killing yourself? Have you often thought about killing yourself? Have you ever tried to kill yourself? Okay, so I send my little 9-year-old to school. He's, going to school to have a good time and be with his friends, and then he sits down and he's going to be asked these introverting questions. It's awful.
Vicki Walker was so angry about this, she joined forces with an international group that believes mental health professionals are fabricating the problem. Most of the members, including Vicki, are Scientologists.
There is no X-ray that can prove a mental illness, but I can prove all of the other physical illnesses, diseases, if you will. And when you try to make mental illness a disease, you're putting it into the physical realm.
The Citizens Commission on Human Rights was founded in 1969 by the Church of Scientology. Their stated goal is to investigate and expose abuses in the field of mental health. Blaming psychiatry for everything from the Holocaust to school shootings to the rising cost of living in America, CCHR calls mental illness a myth.
It's set up specifically to create money for the psychiatrist, the psychologist, and the pharmaceutical industry is going to be the ultimate beneficiary of the total income.
The perception that more teens are on medication is real. Part of that comes from the fact that we have newer medications that are generally considered safer. There is also data to suggest that with the introduction of those medications, the rates for suicide started to decline.
Conditions like attention deficit disorder are often evident to parents and teachers, but depression can be much harder to spot, especially when a teen doesn't have a strong support network at home.
If those people really do have like good supportive parents, I mean, of course the parents would like recommend them go, get some help, but usually people who do have those kind of good supportive parents don't get that depressed.
But opponents say screening's not the answer.
I think our children should be left alone.
I think of depression as a life-threatening illness, and I think that anyone who stands in the way of a kid with depression getting appropriate treatment is placing that child at risk, and I think that's criminal.
For Irina, early detection was the crucial step that got her into counseling.
Do you think it's possible to work it out without any help?
Well, for me personally, it wasn't. No way.
Success stories like Irina's haven't calmed the critics. Still, Teen Screen plans to double the number of teens who are screened next year.
From the beginning, there was 4 clans that were created from that mountain. And they were given the stories of our origin. They were given the stories of how to live on this land. And that's how the Diné people came to be who we are now.
These are the faces of today's Diné, or Navajo, who are locked in a bitter battle over the future of the 12,000-foot-high mountain known as the San Francisco Peaks.
My name is Kelvin Long. I am Diné from Dinétka. It's known as Arizona.
Long is one of the young organizers who is working to protect the mountain. I joined him on a trip to his hometown to learn about the issue that has divided this small mountain community. We're in Flagstaff, Arizona. Population 53,000 according to the last U.S. Census. The biggest industries here used to be logging, mining, and sheep herding, but now there's only 2 things that matter here: water and tourism. These 2 concerns collide on the slopes of the Arizona Snow Bowl, a nearly 800-acre ski resort that is struggling under the weight of the state's unpredictable snowfall. The Snow Bowl is proposing a novel solution, using the city's treated wastewater to make their own snow. Clay Benally is a local filmmaker who works with a group called Save the Peaks.
So when I first heard that Arizona Snow Bowl was planning to make snow out of wastewater, I was just disgusted.
Though the water is technically drinkable, the idea still leaves some with a bad taste.
I was like, you can't get any worse than this. And I thought they would never get public support. I thought the Forest Service would never allow this, which I was wrong.
Despite thousands of letters and the objections of local tribes, the Forest Service decided to allow the Snow Bowl to move forward with its plan.
The Snow Bowl has been the most contentious issue that we've ever had to deal with in terms of tribal consultations. I'd also say that it's probably the only one that we have not been able to come up with a satisfactory solution.
In fact, the issue has galvanized 13 Native American nations. In 2005, they filed a lawsuit to stop the proposed snowmaking. In September, the case will be heard in the federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. If that fails, the tribes say they are willing to go to the Supreme Court.
Sometimes I feel sad that we have to continue this struggle.
For decades, the tribes have been fighting for the peaks. In the 1980s, the popularity of stonewashed jeans led to the expansion of a pumice mine on the mountain, eliciting protest from tribe members. And the Snow Bowl, which opened its doors in 1937, has been at the center of several lawsuits. Today, the battle is over water, reclaimed water that is already being used all over town.
All of our city grass areas are all reclaimed water. The school district, all their playing fields are reclaimed water. It's water that you can drink. You know, it's pure.
The fight is about more than just wastewater. It is a familiar clash of culture versus commerce that has played out on sacred sites across the country. While the town is looking out for its economy, the Navajo want to keep their connection to the land.
We call this Mother Earth. When he sees the San Francisco peaks, he has a mother who brought him into this life. He says that the mountain over here is his mother. He looks at it and adores the mountain. When people talk about it, the mountain, the peaks, they're talking about him.
If you step outside of Flagstaff, everybody's like, they want to do what? That's gross, that's disgusting. Especially to Native people, haven't they already been screwed before? But here in this community of Flagstaff, there's a lot of businesses that support Snow Bowl.
And those businesses say that they rely on the tourists who come to ski. This winter, snow was so scarce that the resort was open for only 15 days.
it convinced us, and I think many, many more people, of just why we need the snowmaking.
It has a snowballing effect, is that somebody that goes to snowball also spends, let's say, $1 in Flagstaff at a restaurant or a motel, which supplies jobs for the people who live here.
J.R. Murray has managed the snowball for 20 years.
If no one came up here and bought a lift ticket, we would probably question what we're doing. But when we open the doors and thousands of people race to get here, we feel like we're fulfilling a need and we're doing something right.
Then there's the potential environmental impact.
You cannot fragment ecosystems. I mean, you know, it's very simple understanding how ecosystems are connected, and especially introducing 180 million gallons of contaminated wastewater to a very sensitive ecosystem. You know, that's not just going to impact one side.
Tom Sisk teaches ecology at Northern Arizona University. I asked him what he thinks.
So for me, even though I'm a scientist, that's not the most influential factor. For me, it has to do more with a recognition of that historical loss of sacred lands and a respect for this centuries-old relationship with the land.
Here we are on 1% of the land, and we're happy. We don't need to get any bigger. But the opposition groups are not happy with 99%. And I just think that's wrong.
If you think about a lake, you know, the water is all connected there. But if you were to contaminate 1% of that water with mercury or with, you know, wastewater or something, it's going to contaminate the whole lake. And all the life in that lake is also going to get contaminated. And this is no different. You know, the mountain's no different. There's the animals don't understand, you know, 1%. Birds don't understand 1%. The plants don't understand 1%.
While the city and the snowball hope to profit from the sale of the wastewater, the Navajos ask that the true cost of their culture be considered equally alongside dollar signs and bottom lines.
In the front.
2 years ago, Felicity Huffman's agent called Danae Doyle. The agent asked Doyle if she would help Huffman prepare for her role in Transamerica.
Medical procedures today.
The usual electrolysis, 3 years of hormone therapy, and
Helping Huffman, a woman, to act like a transsexual was a departure for Doyle. Usually she teaches transsexuals to act more ladylike. Here's an excerpt from one of her videos.
Does your first 3-second impression say guy in a dress? Or does it say feminine?
Doyle calls herself a femininity coach. She's been working with male-to-female transsexuals and crossdressers for about 10 years, but she has been teaching manners and posture to women for nearly 4 decades.
Teach you how to put on a very natural makeup in about 15 or 20 minutes or less, getting a great haircut, some good highlights, key pieces of jewelry that would really be simple and elegant that you could use in the office. It can be done.
Originally from Austin, Texas, Doyle won the Miss Texas World pageant when she was 15. She went on to compete in other pageants and eventually became a partner at a modeling school in Marin County.
It's really fun to see someone who's been very insecure, as I was in high school, hiding in the bathroom, and to see them evolve into feeling good about themselves. And you've seen this in makeovers that are done on television. It literally changes people's lives.
Doyle then taught teenagers and middle-aged women one-on-one. I wanted to find some of these women, but I had trouble locating them. So I decided to go in for a lesson myself.
Grab both of them, okay? So let's do it again real quick. Okay. Instead of just flat in the chair, you kind of sit up on one cheek. It'll help you kind of slant your diagonal, and you'll look 10 pounds thinner. You'll look more petite. So just by kind of scrunching up on that one cheek.
This is what Doyle did then.
Now walk.
And this is what she does now.
Very nice. Yeah. Be aware of what you're doing, much like men have longer arms than women. What happens when you just bend that elbow? Look at the difference. Look at this. Look at that.
Doyle started teaching transgender women when she received a referral from a gender therapist, but she's also been attracting clients at conventions like this one.
That's wonderful. Nice to see you again.
Leah Roberts studied with Doyle when she got her sex change 5 years ago. I visited her at Stanford University, where she works managing the computer networks.
Mature woman. It was just general movement, you know, how to sit and stand and walk and not be jerky and not walk with your, leaning forward and all that kind of stuff. What she offers is that FemImage.
FemImage is the name of Doyle's company, but not everyone who's trans or a crossdresser wants to look ladylike, and not everyone can.
So I'll begin hormones in May, and that will probably be at least a year before I could, really consider what my next step will be.
Hormones have a lot to do with changing one's body and movement, but there's not much you can do if you were born 6 feet tall.
For your size, I'm surprised that your hands are that small. They're just the same
I
size.
wondeed what some of the women at the California Dreaming Convention thought of their teacher. After all, I didn't feel like I measured up to Doyle's standards. Did they?
And we loved Danae Doyle. She turned me into a lady.
As you can see in her ultimate ladylike outfit here today.
Hold on. Danae is not responsible for this outfit.
Joking aside, I had to admit many of these women found Doyle's sessions helpful.
I don't feel I have to be religious about following her rules of the road, as it were. But at the same time, I think it's a valuable, set of guidelines.
Well, it seems these women learned how to juggle their outfits and gestures just like the rest of us.
I do like some of my high school students, it's like they walk around and they do this 400 times a day, and I normally don't. Yeah. Okay.
Me, I just have to make sure I don't fall over when I walk properly.
So we're back.